Okay, we are now live apparently. And this is the normal like fuck 2022 panel. Every year we think that, things are going to get better and then we just have another one of these panels. So here it is for this year. Maybe it'll be the last one or maybe not. We'll get back to that like towards the end of the panel where we all talk about how this January thing has been going. But first, let's go around and each of us introduce yourself, your position in the industry, and then say something nice that happened in 2022. We could start with Eric.
Yeah, sounds good. Hey everyone, my name is Eric Yurko. I write and do photography for What's Eric Playing, my board game review website. And nice thing from 2022. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 came out. That was a good time. I think we went to go see that in theaters. I don't like time is such a flat circle that if you told me something happened in 2021, I'd be like, probably. Oh no, wait, I got my hair cut finally. That was good. That was really good. I got like the whole back half of it lopped off. I now have like a normal people haircut.
I also got my hair cut, so that's like one thing we could say is like people have started regularly grooming themselves. Maybe
It's been like a couple years. I was really at like a very long hair sort of thing.
I stopped cutting my hair at the end of 2022.
What?
So I just went reverse.
I mean, yeah, if you ever need a bag of hair, I know a guy.
I hope they've gotten rid of all my hair, because like if somebody kept it, that'd be weird.
That would be weird.
So Avenel, what about you?
Yep. Hi, I'm Avenel Wing. I am Senior Vice President of Double Exposure. We run DexCon, Dreamation, Metatopia, the Envoy program. I have my fingers in a million places and wear a million hats. And the cool thing that happened for me in 2022 is my latest hat is that I helped launch the Center for Transformational Play at Carnegie Mellon. And so we are a group of people who are all invested in games and game design and making the world a better place and using science and academia to do those things. And so that was my redeeming feature for 2022.
That's amazing. And Carnegie Mellon's such a good place for it too.
It's been
super impressive.
It's all new for me. Right. We brought a team together. Jess Hammer's got an amazing team put together. And so hopefully we'll get a bunch of people that are watching involved in what we're doing too this year.
Very exciting. Jamie, do you want to go next?
I would love to. Last but not least, I guess, right? Well, I don't know. You haven't gone any, Carla. But anyway, I'm Jamie. I am a full-time streamer, professional mini painter, game reviewer. I like to play at game design, and but I do a lot of things. I also work with Carla with Weird Giraffe. I've been doing a lot of different things there and just getting my bearings, because that was one of my favorite things about 2022. And I'm not just sucking up. There wasn't a ton of great things that happened in 2022, but one of the good ones was getting to start working in the game industry legitimately, which is pretty cool. So.
Okay, well, I am Carla. I design games, I develop them, I publish them, I own Weird Giraffe Games, Galactic Raptor Games. I wear all the hats too. Usually when I make games, they have something to do with either fire or birds or both. Those are my favorite ones. And in 2022, because we are still wearing masks and stuff, I finally convinced the people at my booth that everyone is Carla, and it worked. So this new policy where people would always come up to my booth and be like, "Hey, I need to talk to Carla," and then they wouldn't see me because I don't like being at the booth because people give me lots of anxiety now. So they would just come back every couple hours and ask for Carla and not tell anyone why. Why did they need to see me? Who knows? We couldn't figure it out. But now everyone is Carla. So if you come to the booth and you ask for me, the person will say, I'm Carla. And then they'll be able to deal with that person who didn't actually need me in the least. They just, I don't know, wanted to like put a stick in the system or something. Like they needed to talk to the owner of the business for
Is it
no
like a don't ask
reason.
for who the bell tolls kind of thing? Like,
Just, I don't know, but it is so nice. I guess it also says something about the industry where, like, as long as you're feminine, you can pull off being Carla. Why not?
Why not?
Why not?
I mean,
I do like what someone in chat said. It's a real Spartacus situation.
It is.
I do like that.
I was gonna say, why not be Carla? Because then you have to do all the things that are on Carla's to-do list.
That's true.
But then, like, you could dye your hair, like, blue or green or whatever, and, like, people just hang you free prototypes, and you can do whatever you want with them. So many free prototypes.
that does remind me. Eric Slauson, Eric Lang, and I got a bunch of photos together at PAX Unplugged, and I've been meaning to post them to Twitter with "No, you're thinking of the other one," because that's just good content right there. They're really good photos. They range from like prom quality to like 90s pop bands. Like there's just a lot of them. So that's something to look forward to. I don't know when I'm going to get to it, but like eventually.
I mean, I wish the three of you would just make, like, a game show or something, and, like, or, like, a late night show, and I think that would be an amazing thing.
It could be, instead of like too many Erics, it could be just enough Erics.
Yes.
Because if there were any more, it would just be ridiculous. But
Right.
That's not bad.
Okay, so now that we got through that part of it, let's get into the actual panel and talk about 2022 and all the, terrible or like, I mean, just not great things that happened, I guess. We're 3 years into this pandemic thing. How is everyone doing on a scale of, the traditional trash can wind meter, where you start at lid flipped open, then tipped over. You could be in the neighbor's yard, down the street, or you've completely lost that trash can. For anyone like wondering, this is the traditional like, how are you, like, what is your mental health status for this panel that I always bring up, because
It's a great metric.
I mean, it's very visible.
Down the street. Like that's fully where I'm at. Like I'm not gone, but I'm like fully just in the road. It's been good.
Like people can see that there's some trouble going on there, but like, is anyone gonna help?
No.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly where I want to be though, is just like publicly having a time.
Well, I guess the other question is there any trash left in there, or is it like all over the street now, because if you're in your neighbor's yard, you've definitely traveled quite a bit.
I think
I feel like I walked outside carrying the trash and discovered that the trash cans are nowhere that they belong. Like I'm just not even on the chart. The chart is like, well, that would be lovely if there were trash cans. That would be amazing.
I think there's an old Seattle saying that's like, be like the 405, constantly working on yourself, even to the detriment of everyone around you. Like, I like that a lot.
Yeah.
So I don't like to think of myself as having trash in me. I like to think of myself as a highway that's constantly under construction and just causing problems for others.
But like, you have good intentions.
I mean,
Probably.
the highway needs fixed. It's important. Like highways are important infrastructure. It's
Well,
just like
occasionally you get to the end and you just start over at the beginning and just start the process over and cause new complications.
That's the Bay Area. They just go from San Francisco to San Jose. Then 7 years have passed. They're done. So they go back to San Francisco and they start over. So they're just constantly. It makes sense. I mean, it's like, 50 plus miles of highway and they constantly need to be working on it. But, it's to everyone's detriment.
How about you, Carla?
I feel like I'm in the neighbor's yard. I'm not quite down the street yet, but I feel like it's relative because down the street really depends on just how used to leaving the house you are. And with COVID, that's really not a thing. So in the neighbor's yard might as well be down the street. We're getting there.
I feel like I was at the whole down the street, like with my trash can, but like I found the trash can and I'm slowly like walking it back. Like, I've realized that like, things went bad. I can't do things. And now I'm just like, hey, I don't need to be in another panel. Or I don't need to go to a new convention for 8 weeks straight. Like, that was silly. Why did I even think that was possible? Let's just like stay at home and not leave for like a week or two in the middle of like the March, April plan. Like, I've realized things have gotten bad and I'm trying to fix it. But, will it get fixed? That's yet to be seen.
It's a process.
I mean, if we don't try, then the trash will just go everywhere and, maybe nobody will pick up recycling ever.
Or you'll just walk around carrying the bag forever, being like, well, I guess I'm stuck with this now.
There was a point at the beginning of the pandemic where my partner and I we always go on walks just around our neighborhood, and we would carry a bag with us and an extra set of gloves or something to stab the trash with, and we were like, this is how we're going to make ourselves feel better as a result of this pandemic. Like, we can't reach out to people, we can't connect with anyone because it's so dangerous right now, so this is how we're going to like be good neighbors. And that lasted all of like 3 weeks. So I like to think that I helped with people who were in their neighbor's yard or down the street, but boy, then my trash started blowing away, you know what I mean?
It's funny that this is our metaphor, because last week I was on site at the lab and I got back to my hotel room 3 days in a row and realized that I'd been squirreling away trash in my pocket because there was one trash can in the entire lab. And so I went out and with extreme aggression bought trash cans. And now there are more trash cans in that space than you could possibly actually need for the number of humans that occupy it on the regular basis. But when I walked in carrying them, one of my coworkers pulled out the trash she had squirreled away in her pocket and was like, me too. I forget to throw it out. And so it goes in my pocket and then it goes home with me every day.
Yeah, this has been a problem that I run into in like, there's one conference room on our site that I go to whenever I go to the office, which is like fairly infrequently. No trash cans in that room. I'm like, what? At what point do we as a society be like, we can just have like one trash can per floor?
It's fine. People will remember to walk it all the way. No, that's not how this works. You end up with used sticky notes in your pocket at the end of the day.
And plus, if all of our trash cans are down the street, nobody's got the energy to walk it to a trash can. That's where it just goes in the pockets, which are like nature's trash can, right?
Yeah.
Until it ends up in the laundry, and then like you're just sad that you have like pins and who knows what else in your laundry now.
I've washed so many KN95 masks. Years
dryer,
ago, when I was like interning at a company, the company was like this had this extremely long and very tall building. I was in the very far office on like one of the far ends, but the bathrooms were at the dead center near the elevators. And so like just the process of going to use the bathroom was just like a 5-minute, like, all right, time to like hike out that way. And so I would lose like half an hour, maybe 45 minutes just doing a like bathroom loop, because on the way you pass by everyone's office, you stop, you chat for a little bit. You're like, oh, well, I'm here now. I better go get like a bottle of water. You drink the bottle of water on the way back. You get back to your office. It's been an hour since you left. You're something like, I guess I could go use the bathroom again. And you can lose like an entire day to that cycle.
If you're careful.
Yeah. A lot of planning. That was really good.
In some jobs, that is definitely something I could see people doing for sure. People, not me. Never. I would never do something like that.
No, never. No.
So, what is one major change that you didn't anticipate having to make in 2022, if anything? For me, it was EU fulfillment, where I finally thought that I had a handle on all the changes and whatnot. And then I tried it, and it's like, well, I don't know if this partially goes into January as well, but like just there's been problem after problem. Like I fulfilled Gift of Tulips in 2021 for everywhere but the EU, and now we're still trying to fulfill it. And it's like the UK postal strike happened, and then there was a hacking happened, and like it just like one thing after another, and it just never seems to end. And it's just like, why? Why do I even try to fulfill a game in the EU when I could just not?
Have you tried filling up a suitcase full of gift of tulips and then just taking it to the EU yourself and just hand delivering them?
I mean, that's kind of like the last like ditch scenario is like that's what I'll have to do.
Yeah,
And
just
it's like,
hug
how
them at
much
your
would that
angriest Kickstarter
cost?
backers.
Is that going to be the new like 2023 thing, hiring board game mules?
Yeah.
I like it.
I mean, it could be. Well, it could be like insulin, where like if you want to buy insulin in the US, like it costs a lot. So instead, just fly over to the EU, buy your insulin, but also drop off some board games while you're at it. Like we could get this whole thing working out about like, hey, diabetics, you know, you need to go to the EU anyway.
Exactly. They can earn back the money they're spending on the insulin. I know last year at PAX, I ended up getting so many review copies and new games that I bought that I ended up having to carry at least half of them in my carry-on bag. I think I had to weigh my suitcase about 3 different times at the terminal. So it's definitely possible.
I will say the best thing you can get yourself for convention travel, a like portable luggage scale. I have one that I take with me for Gen Con. Critical.
Oh yeah, like because like after like a couple times of like completely having to disassemble my luggage, right, like when I try to like get my bag checked, it's like no, just get that luggage weight, and then you don't have to like be all awkward and like throwing things in the garbage right when you want to try to get on your plane.
Yeah, I had a problem with like one of my suitcases when I was coming back from PAX Unplugged as well. It was maybe like 54 pounds or something, and the lady was like, "Oh, actually, on this flight you can have up to 70." I was like, "Oh,
well, give me a minute."
It was just like me just sliding my carry-on into my suitcase. Like,
I remember after I had loaded some massive games into my carry-on, you know, I was finally getting on the plane, and the guy behind me, I just hear a snippet of his conversation. He's like, "Yeah, apparently a lot of these people are flying back from Philly from a thing called PAX Unplugged. It's a board game convention." He's like, "So all these assholes are putting their carry-ons up in top, you know, up in the above head storage, and there's no room because they're full of board games." I'm like, "Yeah, who would do that?"
It's me. I'm asshole.
Just turn to a random person and be like, "Hey, I'm putting your bag away."
Yeah, hey man, did you really need all these board games?
I want to know what he would have found more acceptable in those bags. Like what would he feel was an okay use of the overhead space that
Gold
he wanted to
doubloons,
use?
obviously.
Maybe he was like, maybe he had a ton of stock in airlines, and he's like, we could fit 3 or 4 more people in those overhead bins.
Oh, okay. Additional passengers, maybe.
Yeah, children, lap children.
He's just like, these people and their board game. I'm like, guy, whenever I travel, everything, like I stuff my clothes into board game boxes. Like I'm just traveling with more board games.
Yeah, they're not actually board games. They're just clothes. That's how I keep them separate in my suitcase.
I don't know. Like I just hate traveling with board games altogether because like I always get that TSA agent that's like, "Oh, this is obviously a bunch of bombs, so I'm going to open every single tiny box you have, every single one, and it's going to be impossible for you to pack the bag as it was because like too many cards, that's no good at all."
Yeah, that happened to me once, and the guy touches everything, looks at me, and he's like, "So can you repack?" And I was like, "No, you do it." I was like, "That took me 20 minutes, you jerk."
I always have to repack it, and it's always like super awkward because it's like, well, I did this when I was at home and I did it in a very certain manner, and you've opened things and like closed them inappropriately. And why? I got exactly 37 prototypes into this book bag.
Other pro tip there, because I've been doing this a lot. If you make layers inside of it, just take a picture of each layer, and for some reason that lets me like realign my brain just enough that I can just be like I've gotten it down to like a 3 or 4 minute repack. Like I did it at OrcaCon. I was just like, here's all my games, swoop, push this, move this, shift this, do this, slide these in here, and I'm like, neat. I have room for another game somehow. Slide another one in there.
That is pretty next level.
Have any of you had the chatty TSA agent where they're like, either they see, like I wore a shirt home from PAX U that said, you know, Camp PAX on it or whatever it was a couple years ago. And of course, like, I don't know, I tend to attract people who want to chat when I'm in public. They see like the horror on my face that comes from small talk and just really, really love to make people uncomfortable. But they always find me, and this TSA agent was no different. She's like, hey, keep seeing people with that PAX Unplugged shirt. What's that all about? And I'm like, oh, it's a board game convention, you know, just trying to keep it to a minimum so that we don't get too chummy. And she's like, oh, board games, huh? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, so like Monopoly? And I'm like, yeah, sure, like Monopoly.
That's exactly it.
Like,
We just all play Monopoly. 6 weeks.
I can't do this. I'm just trying to get on my plane.
See, I never get that because I'm always flying at like 6 o'clock in the morning, and nobody wants to interact with anybody that early in the morning. Like, I will have like a shirt on. It's like, please talk to me. I'm a weird little extrovert, and they'll be like, sir, and I'll be like, sir, and then we'll just kind of move on.
I mean, that is something I really need to take into account, and like just fly at awkward times so that no one like even wants to talk to me, because like, when do I ever want to like talk to somebody in an airport? Probably never.
I can tell you when. So I flew out of Sioux City, Iowa, coming home from TriCon a number of years ago. I was on like the 6 a.m. flight out. I was there at 5 a.m. The person who let me through security was also the person running the coffee shop and running the ticketing gate. And we hung out for like an hour, and they were completely charming, and they knew everything about the airport. So tiny airport, first thing in the morning, free coffee.
That's fun.
That's win.
It was utterly charming. And I was like, this is such a tiny airport that if something goes wrong, I just live in Iowa now. It's fine.
Well, and you know, by that metric, they were probably also the plane mechanics, so you would have just gotten to spend more time with them.
I could have seen like inside, or maybe they would have let me drive the baggage trolley thingy.
I feel like if you asked.
Shockingly, when you ask about driving construction equipment, the answer is very rarely yes. So I don't know.
Sense.
Maybe not.
Something about the fun police.
I mean, if I stayed at an airport for like an extended period of time, maybe that would be like a game I would play, is like just try to get somebody to give me some sort of construction equipment. And then, you know, if I lose, fine. But if I win big.
I wonder if I wonder if there's like a genderedness to the presentation of it all, or if it's like I'm usually wearing like a like wool overcoat if it's like cold out, and I have like mask on, like eyes narrowed, headphones on. I do not present as approachable.
I think the headphones may have something to do with it.
Yeah,
I mean,
That's the
hopefully,
problem.
right? It means that people are starting to cue into headphones as an accessibility leave me be signal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've got those little earbuds, so like it works out pretty well. But I just got some over ear headphones, so now
I was going to say that's been the only thing backfiring about having the wireless earbuds is nobody can see them, so you know they don't get the hint.
Yeah,
No, I love these because like these like everyone could see, and it's just like, hey, I don't have to turn them on or anything. They just, you know, work.
well, it's people also who like ask you about the book you're reading on an airplane. Like don't get me wrong. If I'm playing like Mario Kart on my Switch and the person next to me is like, "Is that Mario Kart?" I'd be like, "Do you also want to play Mario Kart? Because like we can both be playing Mario Kart right now." I would do that. But if it's like if someone's like, "What book are you reading?" I'm like, "It's a book." This is why I do audiobooks now. No one's like, "What book you listening to?"
Okay, so did anyone else have any major changes that they didn't anticipate for 2022?
I had a rather big one. I formerly owned a local game store in addition to all the other things I do. And after about a year of being open, I kind of bought into an existing store more than anything. And after about a year of being open, I decided like maybe it was appropriate to kind of sell that portion back to the original person and just sort of back off and maybe become more of an employee than an owner. And so I worked that out with him, and then shortly after the transaction was processed, all of a sudden we weren't as copacetic as I thought we were. So I was just like, okay, I guess I'm just going home and never coming back out again. Uh, and now I work basically full time from home. So that was kind of a major change because, contrary to what I was saying about not really liking small talk, I am a friendly person and I do like interacting with people. So going from like face to face interaction with my customers and friends all day long to talking to my computer screen and like little scrolling letters that are happening on there. That there are people behind, but it's a very different experience than interfacing with other people. So it's been a very, very weird change going from being like, oh yes, I can read your emotions as you're speaking to me, maybe, to I'm just going off the text all the time.
So, while owning a store, at least partially in 2022, did you notice anything about like the customers or anything surprising about that?
It was really interesting because the people who still would come out and use the shop, because it was mostly a gaming club that also had a retail presence. So the space was used mostly for playing in addition to purchasing. It was very war game heavy, so it was a lot of war games, which is how I got into minis in the first place. And I noticed that the people who still did spend time, in public, were spending more money, but there were not as many people coming in. So it was like it didn't quite balance out the way that you think it might, because of course everybody has finite resources. Imagine that. But it was like I would say that the interactions were a little bit more like they were a little more sincere than usual, but they were certainly less frequent.
I've been trying a new thing with my like local game store because I like them a lot. It's like I'll go in and I'll chat with the staff and we'll like go around, but I always try to buy like at least one thing, even if it's like a tiny little tchotchke or something, where it's like I can probably spare a like pack of Pokemon cards or something every 2 weeks. So that way I'm at least like consistently coming in and like doing the business loop. But also like we chat with the employees for a while. So like being able to point like customer bought something because we talked to them is probably good for them as well. So I'm just like,
I absolutely would have noticed and very much appreciated something like that.
Yeah, that's why like that's it's like a comic book store, board game store, like little nerd stuff store. So like they sell a bunch of little like Pokemon figurine blind boxes, and I'm like, yeah, it's a fine thing to spend a little bit of money on every now and then.
And it probably actually makes a big difference because, being a retailer is super hard nowadays.
I hope
Well,
so.
and-
I like that place when like it to stay open. So
And from a retailer standpoint, that's what those small purchases are for. It's like on one hand, it's nice because we have snacks if you're there and you're hungry, but it's also, it's an opportunity for people who don't have a ton of money to still come in and patronize and at least spend some time there and enjoy it. It's not just like, oh, you have to buy something or leave. In fact, more often than not, people would come and, spend time there or play some games and then head out anyway without ever spending a dime. But, it was like, it's just a little way to be able to contribute without necessarily, going whole hog and buying a new game every time you come in. It's even those little things add up. That's why they're there.
also I'm at the point now where if I like bought a new game, my housemate would like push me down the stairs, and I get that. Like it's fine.
Yeah, but if you buy enough games, there'll be games there to break your fall. So you're just not thinking far ahead enough, I think.
That's almost exactly what she says. Like half that sentence at least.
Well, I'm also at that point where like I just cannot buy more games because I just stopped playing all the new games that I bought. Like so like just Kickstarters just kept coming in, but I haven't gotten to like back up to like the amount of playing that I had anticipated I would be. What have the rest of you been like? Have you been like playing as many games as you want, like pre-pandemic, or still like not playing that many?
I've been playing far more than I ever have, ever.
Yeah, Board Game Arena has like I played like 1,900 games last year because of Board Game Arena being like 75% of my plays.
I
Yeah.
only recently got on that train. Mine are mostly in person. I have a game group that meets once a week now, and we play pretty much a new game every week. That's my fault, but you know, it's still.
Does your group get tired of that though? Because I had a group that like fragmented under the like we cannot learn a new game every week, and I'm like, but then how am I supposed to review board game? And they're like, that's not what this is about. And I'm like,
Yes, exactly. That's what I
isn't it,
keep
though?
saying.
I started this group.
Yeah, like I started this and I can end it, but
I'm just
I
like-
can't
like-
end it. I need you. I need you here.
Yeah, I'm like, the stated purpose of this is I need to play board game for review purposes. Fun is an optional bonus. We're
I'll tell
normal
you what.
people. We love board games.
The closest person I know that I can just like call up at any moment and be like, hey, I need to play this for review, or like we need to learn this game really quick. It's about an hour away, so like that might as well be, you know, half the world away at this point. So, but that said, my friends are very patient with me. They don't complain that much.
My like
Yes.
go-to gaming partner hates games with combat elements to them, and I'm like, oh, that's a lot of games. Like we're talking
That's
like
a lot of games.
yeah, unmatched dice thrown, like anything with like any sort of like back and forth combat. I'm like, huh, it's a lot of games.
That's a lot of games. Our local gaming got completely broken by Omicron because at the same time that Omicron started to go up, everybody local absorbed the, well, masks, whatever message. And so we went from having this is the thing that we had to adjust, that I'm still adjusting to, is we had a relatively well-aligned local group where everybody was being about the same amount of cautious. And all of a sudden, all of the negotiations around like, what is your mask use right now? Oh, you're not masked at all in the office or on public transit. Okay, well, I guess we're not doing gaming this week. Turned into the like, well, I mean, I guess I'm doing most of my gaming when I'm in campus in the lab where everybody is masked voluntarily anyway. And so I'm playing more games, but not with the people I expected to be. And like when we're at home, we assume that we're going to be unmasked at board game night. People will be, but if we've had such vast disconnects. And the juggling of, okay, let's try not to chain a bunch of exposures together, right? So if one of us is out of town for work and then we come home and then we've got PAX Unplugged coming up, how are we breaking that up? So if one of us comes home with germs but hasn't tested positive yet, we don't take it to PAX and infect all of our friends. And that calculus is the thing in the end of 2022 going into 2023 that can just fuck itself. I am so tired of that math.
And it's really hard to introduce new people into, like, it's really hard to like create a game group. So most of my game groups have atrophied because usually we get some like healthy influx and outflux of people like adjusting to their preferences. But now it's become very confusing to be like, okay, so we like, is this a new person? How much do we trust this person? Like, how do they feel about X, Y, and Z? Are they cool with this? Are we cool with this? Are they going? And I'm like, there's a lot of like, it just ends up being, screw it, we'll just play something on BGA.
Yep.
Yeah. Like
Like-
I've been doing a lot of BGA for the same reason, because it's like, well, like you ask like the 20 questions and get the person that's like really good and like masked and stuff, and then they're like, oh, but I have a sister that I see all the time and they don't believe in science, so you know. And it's like, oh no.
The
But we
fact
got
that it
like
is
the
as
20
complicated to have
questions.
someone over for board game night as it was to get laid in the late 90s is not fair.
Mhm. So Peter in the chat brought up a good point where like he said that like 90% of the games that he's been playing is party stuff. And like my gaming also went kind of that skewed. Like, well, not always party, but like I used to do like a lot of heavy games. Like I loved Euros, and now my brain just can't. And it's just like, hey, instead of that, let's play a 20-minute game, and then maybe another 20-minute game instead of like anything that's all that long in general.
Well, it's the binging TV versus watching a movie idea, right? Like a movie is such a commitment. It's 2 hours, but watching 17 hours of the same TV show is so bite-sized.
It's fine. There's
like-
built-in bathroom breaks.
I hear you, but it's such a commitment. Like I have to focus the whole time. Whereas like if I'm just like on my back watching Murder, She Wrote on the couch, I can look up and be like, no one's gonna kill Angela Lansbury. We're fine. And just like look back down. And like every so often she'll be like, but you had this knife. So that means, and like, I did do it. I can't lie to you. I'm like,
I feel
yeah.
like you just tempted 2023 to figure out how to kill Angela Lansbury, and I don't approve.
Yeah, we got to be careful.
Away, so that's fine.
I also feel like I can't explain it, but on that same note, I will fall asleep watching a movie, but I won't watching like 4 hours of television. I don't know how to explain that.
I think for me, it's very much like I've been looking for the ideal. Like I've been mostly, I call it the after work game. Like I finished up a day at the office. I'm coming down. I want to play something, but I don't want to have to like think too much about the rules or how complex. Like I put like Cascadia very firmly in that pile of just like, if I'm tired, I can still bust out a game of Cascadia and have a good time. I would say that now that I've played Castles of Burgundy enough, if I'm playing Castles of Burgundy on BGA and I don't have to deal with like setup, I can play Castles of Burgundy basically in my sleep. And like that sort of meandering space is a space that I'm really interested in these days because like, yes, I just got a 2-hour-long X-Men game that I'm really excited about because X-Men so hot right now. But like, man, who has time?
You do bring up a good point though, because something I keep thinking about is I've also found a few of those, like, I guess at this point I'll call them comfort games. Like I think the amount of gizmos I play in a single day might be bordering on unhealthy. Like it's at least 5 games a day, and it's the one I play when I just need to like turn my brain off and click and make good dopamine juice going. And it's like I keep thinking about it to myself, like Castles of Burgundy and Gizmos, and like even I play a lot of Lost Ruins of Arnak, and I'm like, would these be as fun experiences if I had to do all this setup and breakdown? And
No, Castles of Mad King Ludwig is one of my comfort.
Wild.
Like I would play it anytime, except there's so many fiddly pieces, and so on the iPad, yes, in person.
And in person, you've also got someone who's like, okay, hold on. I know how much money you have, and I need to make sure that I price this. But if I price it at this, then I'm going to have to think about how this person's going to price it. And then, oh man, but what if I make it 10 money? And then you don't know where you are. It's been 7 hours. You're outside. There's a freshly dug grave. You haven't seen your friend. And you're like, there's a gap of time that I've lost.
There's a secret to that, which is once they've done that agonizing, do exactly not anything they accounted for, like buy stairs, and eventually you break their will and they just stop with the bullshit.
Oh, that's good. I used to just like, I was once playing Santorini with a guy and he was taking legitimately like 5-minute turns. Like I had a stopwatch on because I was just sitting there not doing anything. He won because it's a strategy game, and if you think over every possible option, you will eventually figure out the best one. And I was like, congratulations, you won. I am never playing this game with you again. Like you have won the battle and lost the war.
And it's strange. I'm reading chat, and like everybody seems to be at least relatively on the same page with like, a lot of, and the weird thing that a lot of these games share is that they're really hard to set up, but they're not like super hard to play. Which is strange that there's like so much going on, but they're rather simple.
This also pushes back to that idea of like putting setup time on the box of your game.
Yeah.
And like there was a reason people like there's several reasons I assume people don't, but one of those reasons is I think that you'd have a lot of games that are like 15 minutes to play, 30 minutes to set up. And I'm like, okay, hold on. Wait a minute. That's a bad bargain.
That's a bad bargain. I'm
I
going to
read
kill
a-
my camera for just a second. I am in the kitten room and I have both doors shut, and one of them is losing his fuzzy mind. I will be right back.
Yeah, no, I think it's what was it? I was reading maybe a Polygon article that was just like, stop making 100-hour games. I'm a full-time adult with a job. And like that's how I feel about a lot of board games too, is I'm like it's no disrespect if that's like I have a lot of different things that I have to do for different reasons. I just can't really get like Gloomhaven to my table right now. I will eventually, probably, maybe, I don't know. Stop asking. But like there's just a bunch of things that I think are very difficult for me to like to acquire the activation energy required to be like, I could play a 4-hour game right now. Unless I'm like in a cabin somewhere. Like I'm going to my friend's place in February. I'm going to bring Spirit Island and we're going to play like one game of Spirit Island and be like, I wish we had played 5 games of Spirit Island, but like 5 games of Spirit Island's the whole weekend.
Well, and for me too, like I have an obvious soft spot for games with minis because I paint them. But then I sit there and I'm like, I'm never going to play this until they're painted because I don't want people to judge me by being like, yeah, I paint minis all the time. Why aren't your, Blood Rage minis painted? And I'm like, do you know how many Blood Rage minis there are?
I'll
never play it.
I'm a full-time adult with a job.
Yeah, well, even if it is my job is mini painting a lot of times, but not mine.
Yeah,
So-
I don't know. It's something I struggle a lot with because I'm like, I really like Imperium Classics and Imperium Legends. It's a very cool, complex deck builder. Every game of it I have to relearn because it is so hard to play that I don't play it frequently enough that it sticks in my craw. And so I'm just like, do I want to relearn it today? Whereas Ice Pool, I haven't memorized.
So one of my favorite games for like this sort of thing is My City, because, well, especially on BGA, because like it just like it's kind of the legacy-ish, where like if you just like click on the episode in BGA, it tells you like what all the rules are in a nice little table. And so like it changes as you go on, but like if you're like me and you just forget, like what am I even doing? Like, am I supposed to connect all the blue tiles to blue tiles, or are we not doing that this time? Like, I don't have to remember, but each individual game, like if you're playing it, only takes like 20 or 30 minutes. So like if there's more games like that where it's like, okay, this is generally just tile laying in some fashion, that's easy. And like, it changes like just a little bit. So like I never get bored of it because it's different rules.
I think that's a good counterpoint to what we've been saying too, because as good as BGA is, there's still so many like there's so many merits to playing in person, and for me that's remembering the friggin' game in between turns. Like especially with a game like a Euro or something like that, or anything semi-complicated, if you have to try to remember what you were doing in between turns. I know the little notes thing is there, it's not going to help, because how many times have you written a note and you're like, what language is this in? I don't even remember what the hell I meant by this. It doesn't work. I'm sorry, it doesn't. If it's a real-time game, sure, okay, yeah. And that's why I love Gizmos. I can get through a game in like 5 minutes, as long as my opponent is also committed to getting through in 5 minutes. But yeah, like I love async BGA games, but if you think that I'm going to be bringing it to an async BGA game, no, it's not happening. I can't keep that in my head at once. I've got like 12 BGA games going on.
I have 25 tables right now, and I'd say 7 or 8 of them are just the same game. And so I'll come up and be like, I don't and some of them have very specific meta games. So like Sea Salt and Paper, I am playing several different games right now. One of them, my friend and I have just agreed to never use the aggressive cards against each other. But I need to remember that because I can't use it against him, because then that causes all sorts of downstream problems. But like Rodney will steal my stuff, and I'm like, swear to God, Rodney Smith, I will come to Canada right now.
Which is why I'm assuming you started a game with Ray and I, so that all bets are off because neither of us know what the hell we're doing. So you could just do whatever the heck you want. You
I'm
know what I
having a
mean?
blast. I mean, it's a great and, like Sea Salt and Paper is probably one of my favorite games. It's not out in the US yet, but it is probably one of my favorite games that's come out recently. But yeah, no, it's very much like if I'm playing a game asynchronously on BGA, you should have a full understanding that I will at least once a day do the perfect, like, I'm a genius. Oh no. Maneuver of just like clicks the wrong thing. There's not the right undo sequence for it. And I've just like screwed up my entire game.
Mm-hmm.
So Peter had a question, which was, what was everyone's favorite new to them game in 2022?
Phantom Inc. Hands down, no
Yes.
contest. Phantom Inc.
Yes.
is.
Phantom Inc. is real good.
I think it's my favorite of the last decade.
I've been telling Granson they need to start a campaign where they just hide Phantom Inc. in people's attics and just let them find it years later.
Ooh.
Like appropriately.
And
spooky.
that's a fast make extra sales plan. I approve.
Yeah, well, I was like, them and Illimat, those are two games that work really well for like, were my grandparents into something?
I really love Phantom Inc. It was on both mine and on the podcast I do. My co-host, well, I'm the co-host, but anyway, the main host's one of her favorite games was also Phantom Inc. We were just blown away by it. I mean, I knew about it ahead of time, but we demoed it at PAX and then we proceeded to play it a ton at PAX. But just for the sake of like shaking things up, I don't know. I like this. I always love hearing like what's the new to you game, like a favorite new to you game. I think I might need a minute to think about it.
Mine is probably either Guild of Merchant Explorers. Matthew Dunstan's just been having a year. Like Next Station London is also very much up there, or Turing Machine.
Mm-hmm. I really like Next Station London, but also Cat in the Box. Like I just love Cat in the Box, and I was able to introduce it to like my siblings who like I don't know if they'd ever played a game before, but they understood Cat in the Box somehow. So, it just works.
Hey, I need to try Cat in the Box with my dad. He's a big trick-taking guy, although he denies it, which is weird. Like he's very much just like I'm not into board games. We're playing The Crew, and he's like throwing cards out of his hand, just landing them perfectly in the center. And I'm like, this is a cooperative game, Richard. You don't have to flex on us.
I guess in the vein of trick-taking games, like one of my favorites from 2022 was like a sleeper hit I had never heard of until it was brought out at some like chaotic late night play session we were having at Origins this past year. Someone brought out Shamans from Studio H. And that was like a really interesting take on trick-taking just because there's also the hidden role element of it. It's a really fascinating game, and I just like completely missed my radar otherwise. I still don't know if it's my favorite of 2022, though. It was definitely up there.
I usually hate hidden role games to some degree, but I really, really like hidden role games where there's no point in arguing. Like, I was playing the Diamond Swap from Oink, and it's like, everyone's got like tiny cardboard diamonds, and there's some in the center. And in the middle of the night, the thief swaps some of their fake diamonds in for the real ones, and they're all like subtly larger or smaller than the other ones. And so you have to figure out which ones were swapped in. Even if the thief is just like, I'm the thief, go to hell. It doesn't help you if you know who the thief is. You just know that you're like, okay, they touched something. Like, it's a little bit fun to be the thief and be like, nah, that guy's the thief. Can't trust him. Looks suspicious.
I think that might be what makes Shaman's hidden role session, like part of it, so good is because one, it's not the main point of the game. I mean, I guess in a manner of speaking it is, but it's also like it only really truly matters when those aspersions are cast like once or twice the entire game, and then there's nothing you can do about it, or there's everything. Like it's very hard to explain without like telling you the whole game. So the long and short of it is like you only get a few opportunities to take out the person who's like the betrayer kind of thing. But the people who are playing can still win, outside of just directly removing that person from the game. So there's all sorts of different like approaches to it. And you could get through the whole game without ever figuring out who that is. And it's still a lot of fun. So like, if you don't like the hidden role part of it, You can just play the trick taking part and let everybody else deal with the hidden roll stuff.
I need to replay it because the last time we played it, I was in an uncomfortable position of like, I cannot win. And as a result, I must decide who will win. And I'm like, this is unfortunate. I am explicitly just going to king make. And I'm like, so fuck you. And just screwed over one of the players in exchange for the, like, generally speaking, if I'm going to screw over a player, I'm going to screw over the more experienced person because they'll get over it.
Exactly.
I'm like,
that was like this year I had my first playthrough of Twilight Imperium, and I knew I was not going to win. So the entire time I was like, I'm just going to focus on being like facilitating trades and then be that kingmaker. And yeah, the long and short of it is I had one card to play at the end of the game that would say either this person wins or this person wins, just based on what happens as a result. And that was considered a major success for me. So I was like, I'm not going to win that.
I like loathe king making at a deep emotional level, and so that's why it's sitting a little bit worse for me. But I'm also just like, my one challenge with it is I'm like, who has like 4 friends in one place to play a game right now? Like my biggest game group that I've gotten in the last like several months has been exactly 4 people, and I'm like, I keep trying.
Mine keeps growing, but then people don't show up. And so we either have 2 or we have 7 people, and that's impossible to like play any games that aren't the same game that can fit 7 people in it every week. So it's been back to the whole, like friend group playing games thing. And now all this vamping has given me enough time to like pick what I think might be my favorite game of 2022. It's the one that like I keep thinking about, and I'm really sad I didn't get a copy of or buy a copy of, and I'm going to next time I can. But Deal with the Devil is probably my 2022 favorite, just because of how unique it was. And like I do, as much as it is a pain in the butt that you have to have 4 and no more, no less. I think the interaction with it and stuff, the different things that you can do, and it's one of those things where it's just like I walked away from that table thinking of all the different ways it can be played. In terms of what I could have done differently, and like again, it's a hidden role thing, but it's one of those where it's both the most important part and the least important part when it comes to like your asynchronous play. So it's really good.
I did go to this. I went exactly one time. I did not get invited back for reasons that are unknown to me. But I went to a 8-person board game night where their idea of like the appropriate 8-person board game was 6-player Dominion, while 2 people watch. And I'm like, oh, so like when you go to a basketball game, do you say there were like 100 players there because like everyone in the stadium like counts as a player? Like, does anyone enjoy watching someone play Dominion?
I'm just like so glad that like when I do go out to my friend's game night, if there's like 5 or 6 players, like we break up into 2 groups. Like we all agree, like just do 2 different games. It's much better than like having anyone like sit out or playing like some game like for an extremely long time. Like let's all just have a good time and play multiple games. Like that's fine. We have multiple tables for that reason.
Yeah, that's kind of where I struggled, was me just being like, do other people want to play something? Like, no, we'll all play Dominion. I was like, okay, but like, do people who aren't going to be playing Dominion want to do something that isn't watch someone else play Dominion? And they're like, no, we're fine. And I'm like,
I don't know. Maybe maybe this is an unpopular opinion, but I do like being around when people are playing board games. I don't necessarily have to play.
No, I'll do it too. I bring my laptop to like my friend's place sometime, and I'll be like, I need a break from board gaming. Do you mind if I just sit and write for a little bit while other people are playing?
Exactly.
But it's not deliberately sit there and watch Dominion.
Yeah,
like, there's 2 different activities. My crew knows if they invite me for a 4-hour game, what's actually going to happen is I'm going to get bored and make cake. Right. And that's pre-established, and like everybody knows that's how it's going to go. But like asking me to sit there and watch Dominion for an hour to get me to play cake is different.
And this isn't like a complaint about Dominion that much. Like, but it's like a 6-player game of Dominion is going to take a long time.
Right.
Also, these people are some of God's slowest board gamers. And like all these things combined, I'm like, is this? Am I being pranked? Like, is this like if I go to my friend's place, my friend and their partner occasionally take a little bit of time on their turn. That's fine, whatever. But he also makes some of the greatest cocktails known to man. So like, if I'm sitting around, he'll just be like, "Do you want something to drink?" And I'll be like, "Absolutely." And like, he placates me with alcohol, and it's not a transactionality to our relationship. It's just like, this is how things work in Busy Town.
Right.
This was just me being like, I kept being baffled the whole time, and I ended up getting one other person, a friend of mine, to come play a different game with me, and then we didn't get invited back because I think we were disrespectful of. They were also playing Dominion Intrigue at 6 players, so I'm like, the second worst one?
I wonder if it's somehow related to board game streaming, where if you watch like actual play, live play streaming, it doesn't seem as tedious. I've never been able to sit down and watch an actual play of a board game. Because I'm baffled in the same way that I'm baffled by the idea of insisting that someone hang out and watch 6-person Dominion.
I've been thinking about this for years in the sense of like, I understand why I wasn't invited back because I violated some social norms. Mostly just by being consistently baffled.
Right.
And I'm not like upset because I feel like if I came back, I would inevitably have to play a 6-player Dominion, which like whenever there's an expansion for a game that adds more players to it, I want to play that game less because usually it's someone being like, "Oh, well, sure, we could play, and I was like, or we could just play 2 different games of the same, like,
yep.
Does anyone want to be playing 6-player something?
Not if it wasn't designed that way originally. It's like, don't make something a 2-player game if it's not really, and don't make something an 8-player game if it's not really.
I think it's one of those things where you don't choose to do a 6-player game. You end up playing it's kind of like Waffle House. You don't go to Waffle House, you end up at Waffle House.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with 6-player games. And
much like a Waffle House, a 6-player game that wasn't intended to be a 6-player game chooses violence. Like, I don't know. I'm just
if there's a
legislating a thing that I already think I'm right about, so it's fine.
If there's a crumb of politicking in that 6-player game, it is over. You better not be playing at a board game bar because you're never allowed back.
Shtickle and Skull King. If you need to entertain 6 people, they move fast. You cannot slow them down. There's no analysis paralysis. There you go.
Skull King is one of God's most perfect games because it's just every time you're like, all right, get ready for Skull King. And they're like, am I going to have a good time? You're like, no. You experience Skull King. Skull King watches over you, and whatever is left of you after Skull King is just what you are now.
Right? And then the mermaids pick your bones. It's fine.
Like I lost 100 points in one round of Skull King, and I was like, Skull King!
Yeah.
Like, it's beautiful. Can't get enough of Skull King. It's probably one of my favorite trick-taking games.
I do love games where it just completely screws you over and you can't help but laugh. There's no way to recover the game, but it's hilarious that it happened. Like you just have to have it trains you to have a good attitude about it,
Right. You become a little swamp gremlin about it. You're like, well, I can't win any more points, so I guess no one's making their bids this time. Throws in this card.
You broke my nil. Well, guess what? Now you can't predict what I'm going to do at all. Good job, guys.
Throws a Kraken in. Oops, that's one trick that doesn't exist anymore.
So sorry, not sorry.
Yeah. Oh, I love Skull King. It's great. I need to teach my dad how to play Skull King. He won't like it.
Just teach him how to play every trick-taking game. He'll hate it, but it'll be fine.
He likes some things. He liked Ganshung Clever. He liked the crew. I know that he likes them. He just has to pretend like he doesn't because of some old white guy thing. I don't know. He can't bond too closely with me as his son. Otherwise, it's an emotional thing. And I'm like,
too many feelings.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't really know what's happening here. No, my dad's a feelings dude. I just don't get it.
Carla, what about you? What was your favorite game of 2022?
Well, I brought up Cat in Box because cats and trick taking and whatnot. Well, and that art, even though the cards get weird after a while, you have to sleeve that game or else. But we could also talk about like, has anyone noticed any changes in the industry in the past year? Like any changes to things or like whatever. Like for instance,
This was easier in the
BackerKit,
past. Now it's all blurred together. It's just a blur.
it is. It is. Well, like since the pandemic, it's been like, what is a month? What is a year? Some days feel like 2. Some days feel like 1 hour. Who knows what's happening? I don't ever.
I mean, I do think there's been a big industry trend towards like an overall reduction in player count. I just have been seeing like
Yeah.
fewer like big, large, like not entirely, but it does seem like more of the games that pop in my sphere have been in the like 2 to 4 player count range rather than even the like 3 to 5 or the 4 to 6. And this may be purely anecdotal from my own experience because I also have been slowly reviewing fewer and fewer party games. But I wonder if that's a reflection of the fact that it has been traditionally much harder to get people around town. That and like the consistent publisher back and forth over whether having a BGA version of your game hurts sales, which I don't have a good answer for. I just think is a fascinating conversation.
I have seen like a lot more like very particular player counts, and I think that's really good. Like I think a lot of people like in the last couple years they've had to like play 2-player games where maybe they never played 2-player games and they realized, oh yeah, a lot of 2-player games are the worst. And like once you come to like terms with like, oh okay, a game doesn't have to be for every like different scenario. I can have a game that's for when I have 2 players, or a game that's for specifically 3 players. Like, let's play the game at the best count, and I'm okay with buying a game that's only for when I have 3 players. I think that's kind of like gone through, and like I really like that because I don't want to buy a game for a certain player count and then find out that like it's completely
That it
unplayable at
just
that player
doesn't
count.
work.
Wait, what games are good for only 3 players? Not to put you on the spot, but I was like,
If you need a minute to think, I do want to add to what you were saying. Like to that end, the games that know what they're about and are only for those player counts are usually the best examples of that player count game. Like the 2-player games that I've played this year, the ones that are strictly 2-player are some of the best 2-player stuff I've played. You know, so it's like it's I guess it's a level of maturity, like to admit, like, yeah, this is all we're gonna do. It's not gonna have a solo mode. It's not gonna have co-op and like all these different modes. We're gonna do one thing and we're gonna do it really good. You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it could be that like there's no games that are like for 3 specific players, but I've been making a lot of games that I'm like more comfortable saying like this is for 2 or 3 players. Deal with it. You want a 4-player game? There's so many. Go get those.
that's true.
Because like also I've been trying to like make very small games, and it's like, well, if it's only 27 cards, you could play with 4 players and then it's over in 10 minutes and nobody got like a really good play out of it. So, or just don't do that.
Right.
Or just don't do that is like half the time how I feel about a lot of things in games. I'm just like, ooh, or I could not. And then I don't. It's been great. Like it's like like I was talking to a friend about he's a pretty big video gamer, and he's like, there's all these games I want to play and I just don't have the time to play them. And I'm like, why don't you play them on easy mode? He's like, what? And I was like, just play it on easy. Like I was playing Horizon Zero Dawn on easy. I missed someone's head with an arrow. It just went swoop and headshot them anyways. It's easy mode. Nothing matters.
Yeah, just enjoy what you're gonna do. Like you don't have to play everything like at the hardest difficulty or like at every player count. Just enjoy your life. You don't have to like have permission to do that anymore.
Yeah, I also did all the work to like get good and become like a peak gamer boy or whatever the hell. And it wore me out. I played Celeste. I was like, this is good. This is the last hard game I ever want to play. And then I played Metroid Dread, and I was like, except for Metroid Dread. And so like I'll make my exceptions every now and then. But for the most part, I'm just like, play it on easy. Whatever.
And I feel like that is a good takeaway for what we're talking about today, because as we all mentioned like early on or before we got onto the broadcast about how just the month of January for 2023 is not making things look great. So maybe we all just play on easy mode this year. How's that sound, everybody?
Great.
I mean, that's what's gonna have to happen, or I'm just gonna have to give up fully. Like, just
You're
nope, can't do it anymore. You know,
We're
like,
Carl and Abby. They're under the table. They have quit. They're under the booth. It's fine.
Listen, just maybe your garbage can is only in your neighbor's yard, but we should all act like it's just missing. You know?
yeah, like that garbage can is not in my life anymore. Who cares? I will buy a new garbage can. It's fine.
The worst part was I was on a roll early in January. OrcaCon happened. OrcaCon is always lovely. It's like one of the highlights of my year. And then January was just like, excuse me, sir, did you order getting kicked in the dick? And I was like, what? And then it just did that. And I was like, wow, why?
This January has been downright spiteful. I'm
Absolutely.
gonna pause this though before we bitch about January and put a pin in the what trends have we seen, because 2021 we in first exposure, the playtest hall at Gen Con, we saw a ton of 3 player game, right? Things you could play with your COVID pod. In 2022, we had more people ask us for more seats at their table and bigger. Can we have 2 tables? Can we have 8 players? Can we have 12 players? And so there's being a rebound where there were a ton of small player count. And then everybody who's the slightest bit pissed off that they have to wear masks still, that they maybe need to social distance still, are like, no, I'm going to design a 20-person party game and I want to test it right now. And I'm going to sell this everywhere. So I think there's going to be a big bounce towards higher player counts in the next 2 years.
That doesn't surprise me. So when I was saying lower player counts, I thought I saw you like furrowing a little bit, and I'm like, I'm really interested in what you have to say, because I feel like because I'm playing on the like what is coming out of the like review pipeline. It sounds like you're doing what's coming out of like the prototype pipeline, and that's a very fascinating perspective.
There was a very sharp, okay, we're focused on 2-player, and the rules that we're seeing from publishers for Envoy, we're seeing a lot more of the other end of the spectrum. It dropped sharply and everybody was focused on 2-player. They were focused on things that could be played remotely, and then whoosh, back up to higher player counts.
Like,
but like, what is retail gonna do? Oh, like, what is retail gonna do? Like, when all these like high player count games come out, like, is it just gonna tank a bunch of board game companies?
No, because nobody gives a shit, and we are in the minority by paying attention to the fact that there's still a pandemic happening out there and still thinking about things like infection vectors. We're in the minority. It's over, Carla. It's fine.
Well, like, for me, even if I like wanted to ignore everything, I have forgotten like how to get big groups of people together, and like I have to like regularly remind myself like, oh yeah, I can leave my house, like that's fine, like I'm not gonna die if I leave my house. Like I have to like have a sign or something that's like, oh yeah, you have friends, just go outside and see them. So like if I wanted to get like 10 people together to play a party game, like that would be so much effort that I would just like not be able to go to the event because I've used up all my spoons. It's done. No.
I just don't want to play a 12-player game.
But I also think to that end, I very much was a social animal prior to 2019. Like, needed like social interaction with people, and that has slowly dwindled to the point where I'm like, actually staying home is pretty rad. I don't want to go outside. Like, I don't want to see people right now. And I don't know if I want to do high player count games. I really like my small, very brain burner, like three player max games, you know.
I've been like changing my personal identity to like an extremely extroverted homebody, where I'm just like, I've got a really nice couch. We don't have to go anywhere. Like, I got the streaming services. I got a bar. We can just watch.
And it's always cheaper.
It is.
So what I'm hearing is board game night at Eric's house, and we'll play a whole bunch of high player count stuff.
I'm in.
I mean, by high player count stuff, you mean I finally get to bust out all my Fireball Island and we just play like a game of Fireball Island with all the expansions? Then yeah, that's fine.
Speaking of game setup,
yeah, I'm like Fireball Island. Like, me being like, I have to watch the video of how to put it away every time.
I wanted to add too to the pinned conversation about things that I feel like I noticed, and this is like completely from my perspective. So as somebody who only recently started working in the industry and seeing like the back end of things, as opposed to as a consumer, and furthermore as somebody who didn't sell a ton of board games. Like I said, we were mostly wargaming focused, but I still interacted with a lot of publishers and things like that. The thing I've noticed is that most of the biggest name games are coming straight through Kickstarter, which is kind of a duh moment, like to say that, because obviously the bigger publishers are the ones that are putting out games and not having to crowdfund them. But the interesting thing to me is the cycle of kickstart a game, take that money to kickstart another game, and then it just becomes this like return to Kickstarter. There's never kind of an opportunity for them to take that and like reinvest it into their business. And this is all, again, this is like an outsider's perspective, so I don't know if that's how this mechanically is working internally or whatever, but like it seems, and frankly, I think the skepticism surrounding Kickstarter has dwindled. It's never going to be zero, but I feel like it's become a far more robust platform for reliable crowdfunding in terms of, well, I guess not just Kickstarter, but GameFound, BackerKit, all that stuff. Like it seems like, to me, when people are like, "Oh, I don't know, do you trust that?" I'm like, I've never not I've never had a Kickstarter fall through, and maybe I'm just really lucky. I don't know, but that's just one trend I've noticed, is that a lot of times games go, they are announced, they go to Kickstarter, and then they are out of print until a reprint or whatever. There's just not it. I guess there's a bigger slice of pie for that type of game company. That's what it seems like. It's less about, game company. I was going to say XYZ, but I can't use that one. But, like game company X comes out with a game and it's totally self-funded and published. And, that's the game of the con or whatever. You're seeing a lot less of that, I think. But that's just, I don't know, maybe that's just my little corner of the world. I don't know. Do you guys feel that way?
Can I just get you to restate your thesis? Are you saying that there is more of that or less of that?
I would say there's more. It feels like there's more of that. There's less of this concept of like, and again, it might be limited to just like available resources. Everybody's going through it. So it's,
Funny
a lot
enough,
less. Sorry?
I feel like you're describing the industry 5 years ago, and
Really?
we've swung kind of the other way, is my sense from where I sit. I'm
Well,
curious.
that's what I was asking. I'm like curious to see if I'm noticing something that's like fading out, or
I think it depends on, I think what ends up happening, at least from my perspective, is a lot of folks get into the industry from hearing about Kickstarter stuff. And so there's a big ballooning of like Kickstarter and Kickstarter adjacent titles that are available to folks. And then they start they start finding a lot more companies that are doing their own like self-funded stuff or off Kickstarter or like one-off sorts of things. So like there are still plenty of companies that are running stuff through Kickstarter, but I've also been talking to a number of places or working with a number of places on the reviewer side that are doing far less Kickstarters, or their Kickstarters are a lot fewer and far between, or some publishers are coming back around to Kickstarter. I think that I'll occupy an even more annoying perspective that I don't think I've seen any meaningful difference one way or the other. Like I've seen, like, I still get like, as a reviewer, I consider it a mild public service to do like a Kickstarter preview every now and then, even though I kind of hate them. Not all of them, just a lot of them, but not all of them. So if you think I'm talking about you, I'm not.
Unless you are, and then it's fine.
I'm almost never talking about someone in particular. It's mostly just me being like, oh yes, that Kickstarter happens in 3 days and I still need to do something for it, or something. It's mostly the imposition of deadlines into my tightly regimented schedule causes me all sorts of downstream problems. But like, yeah, I would say that because when I got into the industry, I got in because I was talking about and writing about a lot of Kickstarter games that were coming out, and now I'm still, it's 2015, a game is hitting Kickstarter and I'm writing about it. It's 2017, a game is hitting Kickstarter and I'm writing about it. It's 2021, a game is hitting Kickstarter and I'm writing about it. It seems about the same to me, though I'm seeing a lot more places starting to use like BackerKit and GameFound, which I'm interested in just because I think some competition in that space is probably good for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I have had 3 games that I backed on Kickstarter that one never delivered because the guy just took all the money and ran, which like, okay, I guess enjoy your 75 grand or whatever. I don't think that's enough to live off of, but go off, King. One was a video game, never backed video games on Kickstarter. And then one was a game that came out, we played it, it was bad, and they were just like, yeah, so we took some time and we like rewrote the entire rule book to the game because the game wasn't very good. And I'm like, neat. That's actually happened a couple times. Play testing. More people should do it.
Yeah, I think it's really just a cycle with Kickstarter because like getting started when you have nothing is like Kickstarter is amazing. Like where else are you going to get thousands of dollars that you could spend toward your passion project? And then like after you've done like a couple years of Kickstarter, it's like, oh my gosh, I wish I could do this without Kickstarter because of like XYZ reasons. And so like you get into the cycle of like, oh, okay, so my goal is to get off Kickstarter, but then like once a company is off Kickstarter for a bit, they're like, oh yeah, there's so many like pros to that Kickstarter thing, and they forget like all the bad parts about it. So that then maybe they go back after waiting for so long. And I've seen like the same thing with reviewers where like once they get big enough, they're like, oh yeah, I finally made it. I don't have to do Kickstarter previews anymore.
No, community service.
Maybe that's where my perspective comes from, is because as I'm starting to do more, like content-based reviews, all I get is Kickstarters. So that just may be the poisoned perspective that I currently carry because of my relationship to the industry as it is. But I don't know if you guys agree, or like from my perspective, it seems like that Kickstarter process has been around long enough now that there really isn't necessarily there's merits to both, I guess, is a better way to put it than anything. Yeah. You have the person who's got virtually no assets that's putting out their first game, and it's really a great game, and they wouldn't have had that opportunity without Kickstarter. But then on the other hand, I don't know, I feel like there's something to be said for, again, like I mentioned earlier with the player counts, there's something to be said for a company knowing exactly what they want to put out. They're publishing it themselves. They're doing a really, really good job of putting that out because their name is connected to it from cradle to grave. Not that it isn't in Kickstarter, but it's like, this is a fully funded, published, like marketed game by us, for us sort of thing, as opposed to we're taking a chance. We're throwing it on Kickstarter. We're going to see who's interested, whatever. Which kind of leads me to another question. I know I'm not leading this panel, but I'm just curious. Do you guys find that in your experience that people tend to be more daring with Kickstarter games versus games that they're publishing and like putting out themselves?
Oh, good God, no. So yes, no, but here's the thing, is that I've seen people self-fund and throw heart-shattering, not just heartbreaking, heart-shattering amounts of money at ridiculous, audacious games that should have stayed in the concept phase and should have gone through more playtesting and needed an adult to say, please stop. And like if they'd kickstarted it, they would have gotten the feedback right away that maybe they were off in left field and needed to come back to center. I've also seen things make it on Kickstarter that I'm just like, where was the business adult? Why was there no adult in this room? So, but I don't think Kickstarter is the deciding factor there.
No, I did see a really interesting Kickstarter the other day that was like, yeah, so we're going to launch our Kickstarter on date X. We're planning to fulfill 4 months later, and then we'll have it in retail 3 months after that. And I'm like, oh, that game's already printed. I'm like, oh, okay. Wink, Kickstarter. Absolutely.
I mean, it would be like, what do you do for pre-orders? Might as well use Kickstarter if you're at that point.
Indeed, I suppose. I think my favorite Kickstarter foible is still like a new Kickstarter company that's always like, yeah, so we talked to the factory and it should be like getting manufactured in, I don't know, January or February. And I'm like, is it? That'll be fun. Good luck. like, yeah, it should be on the boat in March. And I'm like, yeah, I bet. I'm like,
That's like the adage of when the GM says, "Are you sure?" There's a message there. When someone who's been in the industry for more than 6 months says, "Oh, really?" Just back up. Just
yeah,
pause.
I'm always like, man, one thing I love about being a board game reviewer is I now have a passing knowledge of Chinese port holidays. Why? I don't know. I just osmosed it.
Well, like that's
Can
one
I
of
say
the
another
things.
nice thing about 2022?
Yeah, sure.
What?
Board games hit mass media in some really fascinating ways. The question about I had an ADHD moment and was like, actually, what was published in 2022? Let me go look. And I typed board games published 2022. And the Smithsonian did an article about the best board games in 2022. Smithsonian Magazine. There was the article about Wingspan. There were articles in Forbes and Times about board games. It's not just, oh, well, we've all put down our tablets and we've gone back to the board gaming table. I haven't seen one of those in like 5 years. Last year was the year of, holy shit, they're doing some cool shit out there. Are you watching this art form develop over there? Are you guys looking? Like, there's things happening here.
Yeah,
And that was a
really
thing that
nice to do a fire cutter about it.
did
It was
that
great.
I think we should acknowledge.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
No,
like
Thank you, 2022.
maybe the industry will just keep growing, and then we could all just stay here.
Let's not say that too loud with, again, how 2023 has been so far.
Okay, now we can go back to the why January needs to be punched in the face.
Well, one thing that I think Eric brought up was Chinese New Year, where so in
Lunar New
2022, Lunar New Year, I knew like that Lunar New Year was going to happen earlier in 2023. So I thought I had prepared enough, and so I submitted files in November. Turns out every other publishing company also knew that Lunar New Year was going to be earlier. So even though I submitted files in November, they're going to be maybe printed in March. So
I might have been reminding people all over the internet that was happening. Sorry, Carla.
And I told you. And so I ruined it myself. I was so angry. But I mean, that it is what it is. Like, we all know when it'll happen. So next year, you have to get your files in September if you want your game printed before March.
Like on the
Good
review
luck.
Or at least
slide,
submit your games before you remind Avi to go look at the calendar.
Yeah, that
like this
too.
is why when people ask me like, so you do a lot of board game reviews. You ever thought about doing like design or publishing? And I'm like, no thanks, I'd rather die. Mostly because I'm just like, does board game reviewing have problems? Yes, but guess what? I don't need to know anything about manufacturing. I'm like, I can send one of my reviews to the EU, no problem. Just email it to someone, easy.
Or I am very in tune with what the UK Postal Service is going through. And it's like, this is something I never wanted to know. Like, why do I need to know so much?
Yeah,
Who
I think that is one thing I really appreciate about getting deep into the board game industry is just so many things that I hate knowing. Like, I'm like, I'm burdened by this knowledge. Like, I now have to learn things about like, oh, well, a lot of game companies actually put their games as this age group because they don't have to pay for the additional testing. So that way, and I'm like, it's like I needed to know other more important things.
Did you though? Did you?
It's impossible to say.
Okay, so we are getting to the end of this panel. So what are the changes do you think the industry will see coming in 2023?
I think Hundreds of Horses is finally going to make a comeback in the game space. Ravensburger, Hundreds of Horses, new reprint, thousands of horses.
They're just going to ride off of the success of Ready Set Bet.
Yeah, Ready Set Bet.
Horse themed games are having a moment.
Shot.
It's the new mushrooms.
Yeah, 2023, year of the horse games. Here first.
I mean, I like horse games, so
I do not hate horses.
Wow. All right.
That
So-
was a strong opinion. Now we know.
Yeah.
my favorite pun that I've ever put in the game is for Dreams of Tomorrow, where there's a nightmare because it's about dreams and then it's a little horse.
I do love that. I'm a big fan of puns, and when you said that, I was like, "Oh, this is good."
I don't think I'm going to tempt 2023 by making prognostications. I just don't think I have it in me because whatever we guessed was going to happen in 2022 did not happen.
Yeah, I feel like maybe a couple years ago I was like roll-in rights are going to become a big thing, and they were for a little bit, and now here we are. I mean, yeah.
I don't know that I have any specific, guesses either, other than horses becoming the next big theme.
Chat's with me on this one. They're not really feeling horses.
No horses. Okay.
I feel supported.
I do agree that they're just low quality giraffes because giraffes are pretty awesome. And I'm gonna be making some giraffe games because, well, like after all these years, like I'm just gonna publish what I want and who cares? Like I'm gonna make me happy. So lots of games. What?
Could you please make an imprint called Normal Draft Games where you just only publish games about drafts and they're just like, fairly like, you're like, yeah, that's a perfectly reasonable draft game.
I could. My staff might like rebel like the last time when I tried to make another imprint and they're like, no, do not make an imprint. You have a company, just stick with it. But I am making like there's a drafting game where it's you're drafting giraffes. So yeah, just I've lost it. Who knows what I'm publishing, but lots of things that are giraffe and giraffe adjacent.
Have you played like Alpaca Paca Paca?
No.
It's a card game about just making your alpaca's neck as long as possible and putting increasing like scarves and stuff on it. I'm like, yeah, that's where my brain went immediately. It was Alpaca Paca Paca. If you haven't played Alpaca Paca Paca, you absolutely should play Alpaca Paca Paca. It's a wonderful game.
I mean, now I have to find it. We will see.
Is there a prerequisite to like having to say Alpaca Paca Paca every time you refer to it? I mean, I don't dislike it. I just am curious.
It's useful so that people know that you're talking about Alpaca Paca Paca.
Because like with llama dice, that's an initialism. So like, right. You don't have to say the full word. They gave you the word that you have to say. But Alpaca Paca Paca,
Alpaca Paca Paca, you have to. Like, that's what it is. I feel like I would be providing an insufficient number because if I just said the alpaca game, people would be like, "Oh, Antiplano," and I'm like,
and plus we need more alpaca games.
Yeah, like Pachacura.
Why not?
True. And they're like, "How did you have 3 of these in your back pocket?" And I'm like, again, burdened with knowledge.
But I wouldn't say you're burdened with that knowledge. That is amazing knowledge.
Well, no, if I was burdened with knowledge, it would be games about birds, Featherlight, Wingspan.
So many birds.
So many bird games.
Okay, I do think that perhaps it is a burden because it doesn't seem to be available for sale anywhere. And now you've got my eternal grudge for the fact that you introduced me to this concept and I can't get my hands on it. So this has become a self-inflicted burden.
Burden.
Alpaca Paca Paca. I don't remember how to search for it. I'm so tired.
I feel like the SEO on that's pretty specific.
Yeah, I mean it's like, remember the game when we were trying to like all find the game on BGG because like the game are like, and you just search for the game and you get like 50 results that are all just something the dice game, and I'm like,
okay, I just have to throw this out there because this did happen to me on stream like last week. I was trying to like, okay, we're gonna play games for the last hour, and I'm like, who wants to play something on BGA? And Ray was in chat and she was like, yeah, we should play just one, and I'm like, okay, but what game? Like,
oh no,
totally unaware of the fact that the game Just One exists. She's like,
yeah, I keep meaning to start
just
that
one, and I'm like,
game tradition like group, and I keep forgetting.
I'm like, yeah, but what game? Like, it was like, who's on first? Yeah, it was bad. More games like that, maybe.
Yeah, I would love more game titles that just like mess up everyone.
Agreed.
Let's do it.
I already have so much trouble doing SEO on my website with like 1,000 reviews that I'm just like, no, thank you.
Yeah, no thanks.
Yeah.
No. Carla, no.
I gotta give that one to her. I set her up. I was like, yeah, that's. I don't like it, but it's fair.
That's okay. Yeah, she did get set up.
I was
It's
trying
me
to wrap
going-
my head. I was trying to wrap my head around an Uno pun there for your no answer, but I just couldn't get there, so I'm just gonna throw it out.
Well, we talked a lot about 2022 and some about 2023. Any last thoughts?
I just really cannot express enough how much this January has sucked. Like, I had a really good couple weeks early on. Last couple weeks, dog shit.
I mean, I'm canceling like going to like, maybe 5 conventions because I can't deal with things anymore. So that's like the first time I've done that. It's been a lot. This year or this month has been like a year or 5, and the result of that will be that I will actually probably publish drafting, and just we'll see like if people will deal with like giraffe games. And Firebird is another game that I'll probably just be like, yeah, it's about fire and birds. What I'm known for, Firebird. Let's do
There
it.
you go.
Who cares anymore? Let's make things that we enjoy.
Maybe
And cause
maybe
joy.
2023 so far, like January is just complete shit to help us put into perspective, specifically for this panel and nothing else, how 2022 maybe wasn't all bad. I mean, still fuck 2022, but maybe there were a couple little, like nuggets of goodness there.
Yeah, we're slowly getting back to something that's maybe adequate. Yay!
Yeah.
Avenel, you got the last words now.
May my house no longer explode water unexpectedly while I'm in different time zones? Like, if 2023 can do that for me, I will give it a pass on the fuck 2023 when we get around to it next year.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the best thing, is that we don't have to do this panel again, because, like, the year went pretty okay.
Well, I think as long as we adhere to our agreed upon level of difficulty for the year, the bar is low enough that all we have to do is step over it.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks everyone for participating. The comment section was great, and that's why I just randomly laughed at an appropriate time. So great job, everyone. And have a wonderful rest of your night.
Yeah. Thanks for coming, everyone. Thanks for being great chat. Look forward to seeing you with at least like 2023 a year panel next time.
Yes.
Oh, and like maybe people can say where they can find them. Like Eric,
Oh,
are
yeah,
you
we
on
can do that
Twitter?
Sign off. Yeah, that's a good idea. You want to start us off?
Oh, yeah, sure. I am on Twitter at Weird Drafts, but also you can go to my Discord, which is at weirddraftgames.com/Discord, where it has way too many channels, but that's okay. You get to see all of my new things that are coming out that are full of rainbows. There's so many rainbows, maybe too many, and that's a lot.
That's not a thing.
We'll see what you say about Firebird. Okay, Jamie.
Okay, so you can find me here on Twitch at Jamie Daggers. You can find me literally everywhere else at Jamie Daggers, pretty much. The only exception being Twitter. Somebody took that name back in like 2015 and has never logged back on. So there I'm Jamie_Daggers. But it's basically the same thing. If you search for it, you'll find it. I stream 3 days a week, usually board game or mini painting content. And yeah, that's the easiest way to find me.
And Avenel is Avenel on Twitter because she just lucked out.
No, I'm an early adopter who has a weird name. I grab that stuff fast. There was no luck. Eric, where do we find you?
You can find me. So I'm in multiple different places. If you're looking for board game reviews and photography, I'm on my website, what'sericplaying.com. Instagram, I hang out there at instagram.com/what'sericplaying and twitter.com/what'eplaying due to a dumb thing about character limits. If you're ever starting something, make sure that the thing that you're starting has like a 15 character like name, because otherwise you're just going to have some like dumb shit happen when you try to get the other social accounts.
Yeah, like that's why I'm Weird Giraffes instead of Weird Giraffe Games that I am on other platforms. It's
Mhm.
fine. Everything is fine.
Yeah, thanks, Twitter. 280 characters in the tweet, but I
Mm.
still have to have a 15-character username.
Anyway, let's shut this panel down now. If the moderator is still around,